Silence rears up like a thing in a cage. Funny thing, we're all trying to squeeze through the same small door. Family talk with the family sage. Dad opens up with my sister in a way he can't with me. I can guess my mother's thoughts before she speaks. My sister regulates our speed and filters out the bombs. Mom's a quiet mystic, rinsing leaks. Family talk. Family talk. Family talk. Family talk. Don't forget the ancient one who's got the longest view. Everyone he knows to see the dead are just passing through. Calls me up, coughs, tells a joke or two. If I live that long, I'll be cranky too. Family talk. 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 Wheels are rolling over miles of unpaved road. Silence rears up like a thing in a cage. Funny thing, we're all trying to squeeze through the same small door. Family talk with the family seed. Family talk with the family seed.
Good morning this September 15th. This is Brett down here in North Carolina talking about my response to having observed a couple of videos, watched a couple of videos by a man named Bodo Hanen. H-O-E-N-E-N, in which he was talking about his testimony and a vivid dream that propelled him toward faith. He was sort of confronted with the choice that Pascal's wager argues in one direction for. Making the wise choice. And in his dream, he talked about how he was in a place where it was completely white, no shadow, no depth. And he observed a point of origin where some sort of event occurred. and it spread out fractally to the right, I might add, until a pattern of interconnectedness, of tiny transgressions, turned into a massive, I don't want to use the word matrix, but a massive fractal pattern of pitted, shadowy punctures that got more and more dense, more and more complicated, more and more shadowed. And then there was a dividing line. And on the other side of that dividing line, a vertical dividing line, it was as though you had chosen that fractal pattern using some sort of image manipulation program, selected half of it, and then went to your color choices and chose to invert the colors so that whites become blacks, reds become greens, purple becomes yellow. And his interpretation of the dream was that that vertical line where things descend into stark black contrast he believes that that is the rapture of the body of Christ, after which you're in darkness.
So that we can be blessed. So I pray that you do, and you're led to the Holy Spirit to all truth, including the truth of things to come. Now, to end off, I do want to share my testimony as I have with my previous video. Just as a brief introduction, 7 months ago, I was lying on my couch, completely awake, and I had a really vivid vision that totally changed me. And so for that reason, I do want to share my testimony and this video and the salvation message that comes with it. God bless you all in these days. A few months ago, I had an intensely vivid vision of eternity and what is to come. It was so intense I felt it in my bones. I felt what eternity is, and it nearly ripped me apart. It also changed my life. This experience stripped away the illusion of what I thought life is, and the vision ended with a choice. But before the vision took me to the choice, it showed me my life, as it would be if I didn't make the choice. It started very simply. I saw a grid that stretched out to infinity. This was going to be my life. I saw one of the grids being filled with a clear white square. This represented a good day, one in which I felt productive, joyful, and connected. I then saw the next grid being filled in, this time with a black square. This was a bad day, one where I had arguments or struggles and pain. It then started to zoom out, and as it did, I saw how my life had periods of good and bad. And as it zoomed out more, I saw my life stretch out before me. I could see days and weeks. Then I could see months and years. I soon was looking at my whole life until this moment, and it showed a constant balance between good and bad. But this balance wasn't peaceful, it was a constant battle. No matter what I did, I couldn't get more good out of this life. I then saw the lives of those closest to me, my family, and my friends. I noticed their lives were similar, but not exactly like mine. And despite these differences, I noticed we all had the same struggles. In the vision, I then zoomed out to show me all of humanity's lives, right from the start, and it looked like a black and white fractal. I could see the struggle we have gone through throughout all of history. I saw areas of more light, where some of us had moments of peace, and areas of more dark, showing where wars were fought. And in this fractal, I saw how humanity's great minds created systems that they planned would bring utopias. But all those systems failed to even dent this balance between light and dark. The darkness seemed to be a corrupt virus that was embedded in all we did, even embedded in our best intentions. Then I was led to see the future, and my heart was ripped in half as I noticed that the light that was fighting to keep a balance and the darkness at bay would soon be gone. An event would soon take place that, once crossed, would be the end of hope. The light would soon leave humanity to its choice. As I looked into the distant future, into all eternity, I saw no hope for humanity, no way for humanity to find a way to create its own light. All of those who, like me, have not made a choice will soon be destined to an eternity in this universe without light. And I saw that not even death would save us from this universe. I was then brought back to today. We still have a very short moment in which we can choose, but I saw that we need to make a choice and that the light was about to leave. The light was going back to where it all began. A world before there was darkness. A world before humanity made its first choice. This first choice brought in the darkness because we chose it. Light wanted us to remain in the light, but we made a choice to bring in the darkness. However, I saw that the light had a plan to not immediately let us be overcome by that choice, but to give us a moment of grace, an opportunity to see the depths of what we chose, while the light would work in the background to keep the darkness at bay for a short time. During this short time, we could still choose to come back to the light, but that short time was now coming to an end. I had a choice to make, and only moments to make it before the darkness comes. Since I've had this vision, I've been looking for its deeper meaning. I've been looking for an explanation that would make sense to me, someone who's not an expert in theology. And I found peace with the interpretation that I'd like to now share with you. In this vision, the place where it all started was the Garden of Eden. It's here where God created us to be like Him, to do much of what He loves to do, to take care of creation. But He created us for a whole lot more. God was doing something new with us, something special. He created us because He wanted our company. He wanted us to share in this creation, to walk and work with Him, to continue creating with Him in a perfect universe. This was such an awesome gift He wanted to give us that He had to make sure we understood how amazing a gift it actually was. God didn't want us to blindly follow Him. He wanted us to recognize this gift and to choose to follow Him. He wanted us to understand the full depth of the options available to us, and with that understanding, make an informed choice. That meant God needed to risk it all, to allow us to make poor choices, and even to potentially choose to reject Him and the gift He wanted to give. So God gave us this choice. We could choose the easy path, which was to trust God and remain in this perfect world, or we could choose the hard path, to question God, not to trust that He knows best, and to do things our own way. And if I'm honest, it's a choice I would also have made. It's a choice I continue making even today. Every time I don't follow God's perfect plan for me, every time I feel anger or hold resentment, every time I succumb to fear, lust, or greed, every time I lie or bend the truth just a little. Every day I make choices that brings a little more darkness into this world. And instead of recognizing this, just like Adam, I choose to blame God, trying to make the argument that if God were good and perfect, why would He create a world like this? The reality is He didn't. We chose to make the world like this. However, despite our rebellion, God had a plan. He would not let us immediately be overrun by the dark choices we make. Instead, for a short time, even though we chose to be removed from God, He would work in the background to keep the darkness at bay, to give us an opportunity to reconsider. When I look back into my own life, I see this in action. So many of my choices in life could easily have ended in tragedy, in pain, suffering, and even death. But instead, I now see God's hand holding back the consequences for a short time. And He's doing this in the hope that I'd come to recognize the gift He is still offering to me, even today. As I look to understand this part of the vision, to understand this period where God was providing us an opportunity to reconsider, I saw three major periods. For about 2,000 years, while God was holding back most of the darkness, we lived blindly in the world we were creating. We struggled as a teenager would, who chose to run away from home, and our pride kept us from recognizing we needed help. We were blind in our rebellion. Then God, despite our continual rebellion, helped us even more. In addition to holding back the darkness, He provided us a blueprint to help us understand what is good and therefore creates light, and what is bad and brings in the darkness. God showed this blueprint to Moses. Moses tried his best to interpret it and write it out for us to follow. But for another 2,000 years, we failed to understand the true meaning of this blueprint. We continually misinterpreted it and chose to do things our way, thinking we knew better. Despite this, God then helped us even more. In addition to providing us this blueprint and holding back the darkness, He sent His only Son to show us how to properly interpret this blueprint, how to live a perfect life, and how to make good choices. But instead, in our pride, we rejected the Son and killed Him. And in so doing, God gave us His greatest gift so far. Despite my continued rebellion, He would offer me a free gift. His Son would take up the consequences of my poor choices. All the darkness God was holding back from my life, His Son would take on His shoulders. All the pain I caused, all the punishment I deserved, all the hate I created, every consequence God saved me from, every bit of darkness God was holding back from my life, His Son would take on my behalf. And all I needed to do was recognize this gift, recognize I was doing wrong, and I was responsible. If I did this and came to His Son, asking to be forgiven, His Son would gladly do so. That was all I needed to do. And for the last 2,000 years, God made this gift available to everyone. And yet so many of us are still choosing to rebel. Which brings us to today, just moments before our choice becomes final. In the vision I saw an almost immediate fall into complete darkness. It's the final stage, a period where God shows us what the world would be like if He were not working in the background to keep the darkness at bay. It takes just 7 years for everything humanity was able to accomplish to be destroyed by our corruption and rebellion. All goodness, all light, everything that has ever made life worth living came from God. And now, for all eternity, those that chose to remain in the darkness will be separated from that light in the hell of their own making. However, for those that did recognize this choice, who recognized they could not dig themselves out of the hole they made, and instead chose the free gift to come back to the light, for us, a new universe awaits, one in which we are brought back to where it all began. This time, knowing full well the depth of the gift we have been given. This time, with God, who we chose to be with.
It's a wonderful, wonderful testimony. Being spoken to in pictures and math. And I've spoken about some extraordinarily vivid and metaphysical dreams that I've had. They're in other videos. But today I want to talk about the white dreams of my early childhood. And by white, I don't mean skin color, okay? I was plagued with dreams and visions as a young child. Okay? First 4 or 5 years of my life. Incredibly scary dreams. I would wake up screaming. And they were surreal. They were trying to tell me something at that early age that I've since come to believe in. This place, this white, I referred to it when I was little as the white. Like you might say India or New York State. It was like the name of the location. I was alone in it. I could walk in this white as though there were gravity there. But I couldn't see where my feet were landing because there were no shadows. There was nothing there. Okay, imagine being immersed in the middle of a jug of whole milk and not drowning and looking around you. That's what I was seeing. And I can remember in each of these dreams, I would observe something in the distance and would walk toward it. I had a number of these dreams. And in hindsight, I think that the white somehow represented purity and, like in Bodo's vision, a corruption in the purity that attracted my gaze. In one of these dreams, I'm walking in this vast whiteness. And in the distance, I can see a horizontal line. It looks like it's in the sky, just going straight across from one to from right to the left, from horizon to horizon. A line. And I walk toward the line, and then I hear the sound of a vehicle starting. And I'm looking up at the line. It's way above me, hundreds of feet up. I hear this vehicle start. To the left, I look in the direction of the sound, and I begin to see this line up there is a road that's right on the edge of a cliff, going across all of my vision. And I saw a car enter, like a little dark point to the left. And the sound of this revving car got louder and louder as it drove toward the center of my vision and then across to the right and off into nothingness, like a race car. And I woke up terrified. Because when it drove past, the line followed right behind it, so that when the vehicle disappeared into a point far off to the right, so too did the line, and I was left in this absolute whiteness again, in silence. It scared the hell out of me. In another dream, I'm in this white place, and I see something in the distance in it, and I approach it, and it's a patio. It's all white. It's painted white, but you can enter it, and there's tables and a couple of chairs in it. And I go in and I sit in one of these chairs. And I'm looking all around, and it's as though this room just exists in the middle of a white nowhere. Somebody's porch, their patio. Once again, I hear a sound. I look in the direction of the sound. It's directly above me. I look straight up. There's no ceiling to this patio. It's just white. And I look up, and directly above me, way up, I see a tiny dark point that's getting bigger. Something's approaching. I'm looking straight up from this chair, and I see a railroad train coming straight down from the sky toward me. It's going to crash into me. And just as it gets completely the front of the train, I can see its cowcatcher is about to crash straight down on me like a meteor. I wake up. terrified. In another dream, I'm walking in the white. I approach something in the distance, and what do I see? A gnarled tree. It looks ancient. The trunk is about 8 feet across in diameter. I can see all of these gnarly roots that come out of the trunk of the tree and kind of go into the white as though it were the ground and kind of fade down into it. There are no leaves on this tree. And then I can smell smoke of a wood fire as I approach this tree. Looks like an old, deformed apple tree, hundreds of years old. As I approach it, I notice that on the little limbs, it looks like a dead tree. There's no leaves. On the broken limbs of the tree, there are pots and pans hanging. There's a scarf hanging over one. There appear to be cooking utensils hanging off of this tree. And when I get close enough to see it, 50 feet away, I can see that between two of the roots, the thickest roots that go into the ground, and I should mention that my mother, 9 years ago, when she had a burst of creativity in her Alzheimer's, did a series of paintings of trees that look a hell of a lot like the tree in my dream. Okay? Of course, I described my dreams to her when I was a little kid. Mom would run in because I'd be screaming. And I noticed that between two of the roots of this, thick roots of this tree, as I get closer, that there's actually a tunnel that goes down into the ground with a flight of stone stairs down into this dark, cavernous place under the tree, as though somebody can go down in there. And there's a little campfire with a circle of stones burning away there in front of this tree beside where the steps go down into the ground. And as I approach it, I can smell the smoke. I can see the fire. I'm getting closer and closer, so that from where I'm standing, I'm looking down the tunnel, the stairs, into that dark void below the tree. And I begin to see something walking up the stairs towards me. It's a misshapen person of some sort in dark shadow. And before it fully emerges from the darkness under this tree, I woke up, terrified. These dreams all happened before I was assaulted a couple times as a young man, when I was 5 or 6 and later when I was 8. These dreams came before that. And those assaults on me made me hyper vigilant, and I'm still hyper vigilant. They used to call it hyperactivity. Hyperactivity is hypervigilance. It's a reaction to trauma. We get imprinted by trauma to be more careful in the future, and it can make you hypervigilant. I think those dreams, in a strange way, were warning me of a loss of innocence that was to come, that the purity of my childhood had some things in it that were flawed, that were frightening to me, involving otherness, involving abandonment, involving danger, being crushed by a train, for example. And around the same time in my young life, probably around 1962, I might have been about 3 or 4 years old, there was a power outage, and it was the first time I had ever experienced a power outage in my life. No electricity. And my parents, I was the only kid at that point, ran around lighting candles like you do. I think they might have had a lantern flashlight from Sears back then, one of those bright ones with a big box battery under it. And it was kind of exciting. I didn't feel as though we were in danger, but I was experiencing darkness that I could do very little about and only slightly illuminate with flashlights and candles. And I don't know how long that power outage lasted, but I do remember that while my parents were zipping around lighting candles and stuff in the old house that we lived in, I was in our dining room looking out a window into the night sky. And as God is my witness, this memory is so vivid to me. I looked up and saw in the sky something that I can only describe as a ring nebula. You know the ring nebula? That colorful donut of light, gaseous donut of light in the sky? I saw something just like that when I was about 3 years old, out the dining room window during a power outage. It was just up there in the sky. I can't remember if it was moving in any way, like vapor can, but just staring at it. And then I went to get one of the grown-ups to show it to them, and when they came, it was gone. It wasn't there any longer. But these early childhood dreams of light and dark, light infiltrated by dark, purity with a flaw, purity with something to fear in it. I'm 66 years old now, and when I look back on these dreams, as well as some of the other dreams that I've had that somehow or another brought me closer to the God of the Bible, the God of Abraham. You know, this is so many years before I read about old men and young men having dreams and visions that would communicate something they needed to know. So, I'm very interested in dreams that folks can remember that really seem to be putting stones down in front of them to proceed through life, perhaps a little more wary, a little more different, maybe a little more thankful. And the last dream I'm going to mention happened after I had been violated. I was probably in first grade, and I was always fascinated with thunderstorms when I was a kid. They didn't frighten me in the least. My mother used to tell me that lightning was God looking for his car keys with a flashlight, and that thunder could be explained by some great being in the sky. And I would get on the couch or behind it and look out the big bay window in our living room over the top of this abandoned WPA era YMCA summer camp, great view of the sky, and just watch the drama. And I can remember one night after I had been watching a thunderstorm, an active lightning and thunderstorm from that window, I went to bed that night and had a dream that I was looking out the same window, but it was a sunny day. And I saw something in the sky, and as I kind of focused up on it, I was observing, and my sister had been born by that time. She was probably about 1 year old, 1 or 2, 1963 or 4. I could see my parents and my sister walking away from me, up into the sky, as though there were a transparent flight of stairs that they were walking up into the sky, away from me. And I was hollering to them, and they would not turn their heads and look. I don't know if they could hear me. And they just walked up and disappeared into the sky, and I woke up terrified. with a sense of separation from the other 3 people in my immediate family. Now I'm an older man. I've read about Jacob's ladder, angels going back and forth, up and down. And I can't speak with any kind of conviction about the faith of the people in my immediate family. Everybody was churched. Some of them still go to church. But there doesn't seem to be any Bible in there. It seems like a ritualistic behavior that does not bear fruit. I don't know about the meaning of that dream of my parents and sister walking away from me into the sky. But I can't believe that it means that I won't go to heaven. At this point in my life, I cannot believe that's what that dream meant. That they were going to heaven and I wasn't. Although that's what I thought at the time. Dreams and visions, folks. Dreams and visions.
Sometimes kind of sick and lost. Damage control your memory. What's that gonna cost you? Your eyes get as dark as coal shafts when you're living in yesteryear. When you gonna turn a light on? When you gonna fight those fears? I know a strange, somebody strange in a green kind of way. Said I'd like to take you out, go all the way. Someone you haven't met yet, someone who thinks you can. Someone wants to take you out of your big master plan. You seem kind of sheltered, sometimes kind of sick and lost. Damage control your memory. What's that gonna cost you? Your eyes get as dark as coal shafts when you're living in yesteryears. When you gonna turn the light on? When you gonna fight those fears? I know a strange, somebody strange in a green kind of way. Said he'd like to take you out, go all the way. He sees the child inside you and hears a woman's heart say, come on in and take me out, we'll go out and play. We'll go out. We'll go.
Arthur, King of the Britons, your Knights of the Round Table shall have a task to make them an example in these dark times.
Good idea, O Lord.
Of course it's a good idea!